Hey guys, welcome to This Week in Gaming. This is our first private pilot episode for just basically friends, and it's a gaming and discussion web show that's going to focus on competitive esports titles like Dota 2, StarCraft 2, Counter-Strike Source, 1.6, CSGO, any of the new titles coming out. Basically, we're bringing you all the latest news, the latest gossips, any interviews with prospects, and also the main focus is a discussion. So basically, who we are, I'm Steele from Counter-Strike Source. I've been playing professionally for the past few years and competitively for since 2008. I also have extensive knowledge into StarCraft 2. I'm an above-average player at StarCraft 2, Dota 2, all those types of games. Apoc is a veteran Quake pro and all-around gamer who takes interest in a broad variety of competitive esports titles. Ryan is a casual gamer who's been gaming for about 22 years. He runs MMOSmackTalk.com and specializes in MMOs. Basically, our insights are from first-hand experience, though, and we know exactly what we're talking about, and we want to basically spread around what we know, and we want to bring you guys into our discussions as well. What we wanted to talk about in this episode, though, mainly is casual gamers versus competitive gamers. What's the difference between a casual and competitive gamer? And basically, how does a casual gamer differ from a competitive player? What are their goals when they play games? What makes them have fun? What makes their, world go round? So I guess the first thing I wanted to start off with saying is the average gamer a casual gamer, or do they play to compete? I'll throw this to Apoc. What do you think?
I think the average gamer is obviously going to be casual. They're not going to be playing to compete. They're playing to have a good time. They're coming home from a 9 to 5 and blowing off steam by playing games.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. Definitely. What are you going to say?
I was just going to say I agree with that as well, but I wanted to know, like, what's so fun about just hopping on the comp for 10-15 minutes and rubbing out a quick game of StarCraft and just playing that one game, doing an all-in or something like that, and then just having that be your entire gaming for the day. I from a competitive standpoint, like, I'm a competitive gamer, so I don't understand what's so fun about that and why there is such a big population of people that are like that.
Well, dude,
let me tell you why it's so fun, Josh. Let me take this one here. Mm-hmm. Okay. First of all, it's not that it's so fun. It's partly that we don't have a choice. All right. So with me, with my children, my family life, and extended work hours, and just the way shit flows, I don't always have more time than to play like an hour a night. Sometimes not even that. So that's kind of what makes me a casual gamer. I get on, I do it up, I have fun, I socialize with people, try to do some PvP. I mostly do MMOs, as Josh announced. And, that's what I do. And if I have a chance to get on Battlefield or, one of those type of games, I just get on, blow some shit up, relieve some stress, and then, off to do whatever else I'm required to do around the house. And for other people that are casual gamers, it might not be so much as, familiar responsibilities as just financial ones. Maybe they're just working all the time. But I think a lot of casual gamers, now, I mean, if we take the whole collective of casual gamers and totally make this up, but maybe half would play all the time if they could, and then the other half, they're quite content with their casual gamerness.
Okay, so for those half that would play all the time if they could play all the time, do you think they would remain casual gamers in the sense that they don't play to compete, they don't go to travel to LAN tournaments or play in online tournaments? Do you think that this is a fault that esports isn't big enough, that people just don't know about tournaments, people don't know about LAN events or online leagues that they can actually get into? Or do they think that, I'm probably not going to get anywhere with this game, so I'm just going to play it with my friends and play on these modded servers, these zombie mod servers in whatever first-person shooter you're playing, or custom maps in an RTS game? Or am I just going to start leveling my paladin in World of Warcraft?
Dude, that's a super question, and you gave like 50 answers and lead-ins and everything else, and I think your kind of implicit analysis is correct. So we have to take the half that would play all the time. Then we have to break them down into what percent of those people feel actually competitive, where they see Josh in his white shirt online and they want to rip him apart. Okay, so we kind of got to go from that angle. And to be honest, we're going to dive into MMOs. I'm not going to talk about them, but that sort of a population, talk about those people, because you have a lot of casual gamers in MMOs, as you alluded to with WoW and leveling your paladin, right? Well, I think of those casual gamers who would chase Josh around the arena, a very slim percent would actually engage in, these LAN parties or signing up at their, local gaming club. I forget what those are called. Internet cafes, whatnot.
Sure.
To go engage in these little tournaments. I think it's a very slim percent. I'm a very competitive guy. I mean, I would compete with you on just about anything, or try to, toss my hat in the ring. But then as a casual gamer, it's like, I'm not like that top 1% of people of casual gamers would engage Josh, because with that slim amount of time, I have to think, well, shit, what do I want to do? Sometimes, honestly, I want to get into my MMO and craft, like build stuff, like, let's combine these pixels and see a sword pop out, and that does it for me. Other times I'm like fucking out for blood, and I just want to go find you. I mean, I want you. And, but that's a lesser time. So I think of those people that are casual, you have a very much smaller percent of people that would actually fit your personality, where they want to hook up at those LAN parties, they want to go to those internet cafes, and they want to go pro, but they can't because they have other obligations, or they've committed to a different lifestyle that just doesn't lead to what you're able to do and what other people in your bracket are able to participate in. Does that answer part of the question?
Yeah, it definitely answers part of the question, but it's still, I don't know the word is, but basically I'm still having trouble trying to understand why, there's these tournaments all the time happening. There's live streams readily available for anyone to watch. There's like Half-Life TV, Source TV is for people who watch Counter-Strike, which is basically the spectator mode. There's Shoutcast. There's you can go spectate live at the events.
Dude,
why
fuck spectating? What's up with that? You're like asking why people aren't coming in to grab your balls and rip them off. And if I'm watching
that
you,
as well, though.
But that's like a learning thing, right? If I watch you, I'm learning technique and strategies, close quarter combat or tactics, right?
Okay, but let me ask you this question: is the main spectator base comprised mainly or primarily of competitive gamers that want to keep up with the scene, or casual gamers that just want to watch because they're unable to do it themselves? And it's kind of like people who watch football or watch soccer or watch tennis. They don't play the sports, or they do play the sports, but they don't do anything at a decent level. But they spend hours upon hours watching the sports.
There's different tiers, dude.
Yeah, if we're talking spectators, and then I'm going to hand this off to you, Apoc, see if you have an opinion on that. But if we're talking spectators, that's actually, I'm going to be extreme here. That's like a breed of person, okay? So I don't know if that even comes down to casualness or pussiness or you're just learning. That's like something that could be totally broken apart. And I bet we could talk for like hours on that one topic. But that's a very good point. And for people that would actually spend their living, breathing life spectating, not with the goal of learning how to defeat you, but with the goal of just watching, because it's like watching TV. You have people that just watch TV all the time. Maybe they're part of that crowd. That's a tough one. We should take a survey.
I think there's different tiers, man. And you say, like, what makes someone a competitive gamer, dude? I don't think anyone just comes in. I mean, obviously some people are so competitive that anything that they do, they're going to want to compete in, right? That's just their nature. But there's a lot of people, dude, that start gaming, Josh, and it's just like, how did someone like you or myself or someone else that's competed in gaming get started? You generally play games for fun, just like any other casual gamer, and you're good at it. You pick up, you're a natural, and you happen to be good, and it just progresses, and you start competing, right? Because that's what people that are like-minded like you and that are good like you in the game want to do, and that's what's fun. And then as far as spectators go, I think there's different tiers, dude. I think some guys watch it, just because they're spectators, like Ryan said. They're pussies, whatever you want to call it. They like to watch, and they really don't play a whole lot. But then there's a lot of guys that watch to learn. So they watch to pick up on new things, and they're trying to break into the competitive world.
Okay, well, going back in my life then, when I've been playing games for as long as I can remember. Every time I'd come home from school, I'd sneak onto the computer before my brothers came home, and I'd sneak in some Duke Nukem 3D on the comp when I was like 6 years old. And like I've been playing as much as I could, and we used to do like we played on Serial Network, then we played on when we got dial-up, we started playing online. Whenever we got cable, we started playing online. So like I've always had this drive to always be able to beat them and beat whoever else I'm playing against. And it wasn't until 2008 that I found out about TWL, Cal, SIBO, like all these online leagues that you could actually compete in, and LAN tournaments. And basically, I was a pub star, and a pub star basically is a person who goes into, usually it's like a first-person shooter game, and you basically destroy everyone on the server. You're just way better than everyone on the server, and
But you
have
don't compete.
some insane score. But I didn't compete. But I didn't know about.
You stomp
competition.
casuals.
I was a casual gamer who stomped on casual gamers though. I didn't know that there was competitive games out there. I didn't know anything about it. So I guess my question is, there are such a large number of pubbers out there, like pub stompers out there, that they only play in public servers, they don't compete at all, and they completely crush all their opponents. Is it that they just enjoy that so much that they don't switch into competitive gaming, or is it that they don't know about LAN tournaments or online tournaments, that they don't actually get into it in a more serious fashion, where they would do it in the same sense that you would go and play soccer with your friends and join soccer leagues or join football leagues or rugby or tennis?
I think those are the guys
Josh,
competing. I mean, those are the guys spectating.
I got to say that, my brother, he is, what do you call him, a pup star? Like a puppy? Okay. Is that what it is? Pup. Okay. He was a fucking puppy god. We would get on Counter-Strike back when you were like still shitting on yourself and whatnot. No, I'm kidding. But, we get to Counter-Strike and he would just rule. And he wasn't cheating or anything. I'd say, dude, what the fuck is up? Is it your system? Because we shared the same internet connection, so I was like worried, is he getting like the first feed and then it's coming around to me on my longer LAN cord and that's me? Because this guy would rack up kills and just own people. And so speaking from how I observed his life, being a pup rock star, I don't think he knew. And I, as a casual gamer myself, I'm competitive with things. But I don't know if I'd go and try to, engage you and try to get on your team, because I don't feel like I'd want to, get involved with that level of commitment, being a casual gamer. But for somebody like him, I don't think he knew. So I think there's probably a media issue surrounding this, where people just aren't aware of what's going on in your world. And dude, I'll tell you what, watch out when people are fully aware, because then, just like the UFC, remember when it first started off? Those guys were gods back then, with Hoist Gracie and Frank Shamrock, or is Ken Shamrock, Severn, Dan Severn, all of them. Okay, so they're like gods. Stick those guys in the ring today, what happens? Hoist Gracie, he has some skill. I'm not trying to get too far off topic, but a lot of those guys...
He still got his ass kicked, though. Didn't he fight like GSP or something?
Oh, you know what? He fought Matt Hughes. And
Matt Hughes, that's right. Put him in a crucifix, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't even count. To me, it doesn't count, because how old was Matt Hughes? And how old was Hoistifer at that point in time?
Right.
If Hoist was in his prime, Matt's in his prime. Matt was kind of getting up there. I don't know. I don't know. But what was Matt's inspiration? And by the way, Josh, this totally relates to the scene you're discussing, okay? It's just in UFC land, all right? It's like what people are involved and know how to get involved with it. Like right now, Apoc, maybe you know the answer to this, okay? But I don't. Let's say that I want to go get involved with the UFC and I want a shot at trying to get in. Okay, how do I do it? I don't even know. And since I'm so casual and even observing UFC, I don't even know how to get started, okay, if I wanted to. And then you have people like Joshua who are driven, like, I am a fucking puppy rock star. I stomp boys nuts. I want to get involved in the UFC. And those guys are just driven towards that end. You know, if you have a special, and by the way, also partially answering your question, Josh, is people, if they have something they're really good at, they're usually, unless they're exceptionally lazy, which a lot of people are, but they're driven towards pursuing it and achieving their goal. You know, so I think also part of the answer to your question is some people just aren't interested in joining teams and getting that good because that's not their strength. Like my question to you, and maybe this is true, but in high school, were you on the wrestling team or the boxing team or hockey or anything like that?
Soccer,
Maybe
yes.
you were, but were you?
Yeah, I was on the soccer team.
Soccer team, okay. That's I actually was asking about something where you get pounded a little bit because usually.
Oh no, I had
No, he
enough
played
my
the
brothers.
he played the
No, it's
pussy
fine.
sport.
Dude,
Pussy
soccer,
sport.
I love it, and it can get juicy. But my point is, for guys that go out to do wrestling, they might say, "Why aren't there more guys coming out to do wrestling?" Well, you know what? People don't like getting their faces rubbed in mat. You know, working their muscles.
It's true.
You happen to be really good at blowing dudes up online, and I've seen my brother who's really good at that stuff. He fucking works me, and he's not cheating, dude. And I'm decent. I'm like, I'd say I'm medium, and then, you know, like if we have 10, you know, not 10 people, but 100% of people, I'd say I'm over 50%. I could jump into a game and outscore at least half the people with my casualness. But even him with his casualness, he just jump on and own a server. I don't even know how you put that math together. That's like differential equations and outer space coming together. And so it's like a special type of person. So, you know, I think you're just one of those people. Like, you got people that do UFC. Why? That's what they do. That's like what's innate to them. And, you know, people that do what you do, they're just good at it. But I think there's a lack of media on it. I think there is, because I don't even know how to get involved with what you do. So you're saying this stuff, I don't even know how to do what you're doing. I don't even know.
I think it's just different people.
So part of its drive, though, is what you're saying. And you have a certain drive or determination to
Of course.
have the certain. Okay.
What was your next question, Josh?
Well, the next question would be like, it kind of got covered a little bit. Why are game mods or custom maps so popular to such a large portion of the community? So, for example, in Warcraft 3 or Starcraft 2 or even like any RTS game, you'll have these custom maps created where it's not even the real game. It's not the game that you get from retail playing against single player against the computer or multiplayer against other people. It's where the rules of the entire game are changed, and people buy the game specifically for this custom mod. For example, that's how Dota started. Dota was a custom map for Warcraft 3,
Right.
and it got so popular that it has its own standalone. It's got three standalone spin-off basically games. There's Heroes of Newark, there's League of Legends, and there's Dota 2 coming off of it, all from this custom map on Warcraft 3. Why did that get so popular, and why are other maps similar to that so popular, or zombie mod for Counter-Strike or Modern Warfare? Like, these are not normal game modes. These are custom game modes that even Counter-Strike was a game mod for Half-Life, and it got so popular that it got its own game. It got Counter-Strike that developed into 1.6. It got the Source one, which Valve picked up, and now they're creating Counter-Strike Go. Why are mods so popular versus like in comparison to the normal game?
You got it. Deep questions.
I don't know, man. This is a lot of thinking right here. I don't know, man. I think they're just something to pass time, and there's really no competitiveness. I think a lot of the guys that play those are the guys that, I mean, this isn't obviously like a rule or, you know, applies to everyone, but for the majority, I think the people that play those are the ones that can't hang competing in the regular game.
Well, wait a minute. To defend the guys that can't hang. All right.
It's not always, but I think a lot of...
So they're ruling these secondary mods. You know, the mods that did not release with the initial package. But why is that they can't hang? Maybe they already played enough of the original maps,
That's
and
true,
they had
too.
their fill. Maybe they had their fill at 10. Now, somebody like Josh, and I'm totally profiling here, and this might not even be true, Josh, but you might appreciate every corner in a Counter-Strike map, every bit of terrain, and try to leverage it, just like a chessboard. You know, chess, it's a very simple layout, yet people play it. They've been playing it for centuries, for thousands of years, I think. I mean, it started back in India, okay? Why? You know, there are some people that actually appreciate the simplicity of it. Then you have other people that say, you know what, I get the idea, and I like the game, but I also like more diversity. And then they play this one where you could parachute like dead pieces into action all over the place, you know, so they're like airborne rangers.
You know, get stale. Some people just need new shit.
That prompts me into a two-part question, though. The first part of the question would be Call of Duty. It's got what, like 18? They're going on their 19th game now, and next year or whatever. Basically, it's
what are you talking about?
it's been the same game the past like 4 years with new guns,
the last 3
and new maps. Actually,
the last 3 are like dupes of each other with new maps and like some tweaks on guns.
So it's basically you're like buying
an expansion.
Basically you're buying a $60 map pack.
Yeah.
You're getting the exact same guns, the same models, the same textures. It's all in the same Xbox 360 piece of crap system, so you're not getting improved graphics or anything. And they're just
he's gonna piss a lot of people off.
We're gonna have some year after year, they pump out a new game, and nothing's changed. But you're saying like people are like, I want some diversity. I want to play a custom map for this thing. Mm-hmm. But then they buy. It's one of the most popular games out there, and it's the same piece of crap game recycled with new guns year after year. So how do you explain that?
How do you explain that?
I don't know. I think something about shooting people never gets old. But that's just me.
And then, like. It's fun to have the latest game and to have the latest features of the game and play the multiplayer, but I think most people do it because it's new. But I think it's more trendy than it is. It's more, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. Better, fabulous. If you want to use fabulous, like it's just terrible. Like the game is crap. It's for players who don't want to adapt or learn or improve. Like you get this game, you get your level 50 or 60, you get all the weapons, all of the unlocks and whatever, and then you get the next game the next year. And it's not something where you're looking forward to the next game because you want to play the single player. How many people do you know get an Xbox to get Call of Duty to play the single player? The single player's not that sick. So I don't understand why people do that when a new game's going to be coming out the next year, except for just the whole notion of trending. And this is kind of leads into the other question that I had. The other part of the question was Counter-Strike Source is the latest installment of basically the Counter-Strike series, but Counter-Strike Global Offensive is coming out. They have I guess it's technically pre-alpha, but they have a closed beta which has, I think, 10,000 copies. I had one of them. I've played the game. I've competed in a tournament in the game already, so I've played the game enough to actually know what I'm talking about. And basically what Valve has been doing is taking elements of Call of Duty, taking elements of Battlefield, how they have random dust particles flying around the map, having all these textures where you can camouflage yourself into a wall, having like blown up Humvees as just ambient textures. There's ambient noise. There's just all sorts of clutter happening all around the maps just to make it have this Call of Duty or Battlefield 3 feel to it. But it takes away from the actual elements that made Counter-Strike, the Counter-Strike series, a very popular and dynamic and competitive game.
I see what you're saying. So, like, why?
Yeah, it's
why
like
people love eye candy.
It's
what do you got to say about
it? It's like you're making a new chessboard, but you're making all the pieces look similar and making it like dark gray or dark brown mixed with black as the two instead of black and white. Like,
well, dude,
you're not able to distinguish between the two. Like, keep it simple. And the game was made to be a competitive game. The game has its elements all laid out where it has this dynamic where every element has its own purpose. It serves its own purpose. And then when you make it into a public game where you're recycling basically everything year after year and just knocking out new games because it's a trend, it takes away from the actual competitiveness and difficulty of the game.
You know what, dude? You've hit the nail on the head. Okay, you've hit on a topic that that transcends just first-person shooters. We see that same plague infesting the world of MMOs. You know, back in the day, we had EQ1, okay? And that wasn't the first MMO, but I'm going to start there. As I talked about, like on my last cast at MMOSmackTalk.com, we kind of had games that went the way of Ultima Online and some that kind of went off with the EQ style franchise, you know, of making these theme park MMOs. And that ended up seemingly to win out and capture the attention of the masses. And you know, next successful game in that theme park motif was World of Warcraft. And if you look on the market today, show me an MMO that's been wildly successful and made tons of money that has not copied the WoW style. Now, I'm sure somebody out there is going to be yelling that something did, but you know, the majority follow that, and then they just try to improve with graphics. So it's like the same thing. So World of Warcraft, it was new from EQ in that like they added a mailbox or some other things, and they enhanced what was already there. And then somebody else like Warhammer came along, and they might have added public battlegrounds and quest givers that were running around out in the woods. I don't know, but something that's really worthless. But really, what's happening? You're starting off at level 1, you're working your way to level 50 or 60, depending on the expansion, and really the mechanics within remain the same. And I've asked the same question: why do people bail? So you've established your social network, let's just say in WoW, or in your case in classic Counter-Strike, and mechanics seem to basically remain the same, except eye candy, attracting all the fish, you know, that people are, has changed or altered. And, you know, people are leaving what they already know in their social networks to go to the next thing. And then sometimes they come back, and sometimes people just attrit and leave the scene altogether or jump to a different genre of game, like first-person shooters or RTSs or whatever. You know, they take little hiatuses and whatnot, APOC. And, you know, I think that's just, it's weird. I think that our society is just built like that. Not our society, but people. Like, you have certain people like you seem to appreciate the core elements and mechanics that makes a first-person shooter good. And I respect that. That's part of the reason I love the shit out of Darkfall Online, because it adheres, it broke ground doing what it did. Is it the only first-person shooter MMO? Or the first one? I actually don't think so. But it really did a good job. But a lot of people want to stick to this glitter, and you know, they're like looking at Terra, which now has legal issues, and these other MMOs with all this glitter and shit, and they're always looking for the fucking glitter. Let's look at Rift! Did you ever check out Rift, dude? I mean, it started off with servers were packed. Boom! You couldn't even get on a server. And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, I was about to say 3, fuck me, 2 months later, nobody was playing Rift. Does that even like calculate with your math, man? I mean, it died out that quick. Why did people jump to Rift? It was like, feed me, you know? And so I think that people just do that. They see some sort of sparkling and they're promised new, but what I feel you're alluding to is really not new. Is that kind of true?
I don't know if this is more of a justification or an explanation to it, but when you play a game like World of Warcraft, when you play a role-playing game, you're not playing it for just to, like when you play Counter-Strike, you run around and it's the same thing basically over and over and over again. You spawn, you buy your guns, you go kill the enemy, and nothing changes about that, right? It's the same dynamic. That's why, you know, there's such a huge metagame. Same with StarCraft 2 now. There's such a huge metagame where they think you're going to do one thing, then you kind of do something else, and it changes the strategy and competitive play. But when you're in a public server, everything's the same. When you play World of Warcraft or Fallout, I played the Fallout series 1, 2, not 3, but I saw my brother playing 3. I saw my old roommate playing Fallout 3. Like, you play it for the story. You play it for the quests. Like, it's constantly changing. Like, yeah, it's the same thing. You buy the game, you start level 1, you level your guy. But for Fallout 1, you had that storyline that kind of built up, and you're like, oh, you know, this nuclear fallout, let's kind of see what's going on. Fallout 2, oh, my ancestor was the Vault Dweller. Let's do these quests, and it's a new game, and it's a new time. Basically, it's a new either city, area, country, continent, realm. If you're playing fantasy games, you have, you have. My brother plays EVE Online, or whatever the thing is with all the big spaceships. So
Yeah,
you're
it's
playing for the quest mainly. But you don't see that with RTS games or FPS games where you buy the game specifically for the single player. And I think that's where the main difference is between a person who's playing an RPG game where they can, expand on one certain idea, and an FPS or RTS where, let's use Dota, Han, League of Legends as an example for that. Dota was the original. They put it into League of Legends, which is basically the one for the most casual players, in my opinion. I think that it's the easiest of the games. You've got basically the least dynamic elements incorporated into the game. Then you have Heroes of Newerth, which was created by S2, and they just injected a whole bunch of their own imbalance issues into that game. And then there's Dota 2, which just recently got created and put in beta, and that's the most balanced of all the games. It's the most competitive of the games, in my opinion. So you can see that it's the same. Basically, it's the same general game. It's the same thing with World of Warcraft. How all these other RPGs or MMOs branched off of the general premise of World of Warcraft. They did the same thing with Dota, except basically you have this ultra pub version, this ultra imbalanced version, and this remake that's actually being handled in a proper manner, where it's going to be a really competitive esports title. They had their $1 million tournament already. Navi, I think it was, got $1 million for winning first place. That's $200,000 per player. Like, that's massive. So, like, I don't know if it's a justification towards how MMOs or RPGs are able to bust out new games, basically where you're just leveling a new guy. But that's how I see the difference between an RPG and an FPS or RTS.
Okay, so essentially, what is your problem with people jumping to the various FPSs, the various spin-offs?
My issue is that
your problem.
My problem is that it hurts me. Like, in some way or form, it kind of gives me a headache. It hurts my brain. Why? I just can't understand why people have to get this new game for the sake of it being a new game. Why don't they just... I think it's the game developers' fault, partially, for being greedy, saying, hey, let's not get a new game because we know that, several million people are going to buy this at $60 a pop, and this is going to get us millions and billions of dollars. So I think it's partially their fault, but, like, I want them to slow down with the production of games and kind of focus more on the quality of games. I want to see an increase in quality of games all across the board. If we see better games and better quality games, we could see better quality esports, and esports as a whole can take off based off of that. I want to see it to a similar scale as football or soccer or hockey. It would be awesome to see that, but I don't see that happening if the game developers are tailoring the game for casual gamers and not letting them basically flourish into a more competitive game. What I love about what Valve is doing right now with Counter-Strike Go is that they're bringing in competitive gamers to work on the game. They're saying, hey, tell us what's going on with the game. What can we improve? What should we take out? What should we add in? What can we change to make this game a competitive esports title? And I think that's what more games have to do, but I don't see that happening with Activision or whoever the hell makes Call of Duty these days. Is it EA? I don't know. EA is a crock of crap too. Like, they don't know what the fuck they're doing with their games.
Yeah, but look at what they're trying to do, man, and who their player base is, right? Like, EA, Activision, basically have like a wide range of casual players, specifically console players. I think the majority of their sales comes from consoles, casual players that are playing on their Xboxes and whatnot. So of course they're going to make it look as good as possible and, basically make it and tailor it towards the people that are going to play their game. people that play Counter-Strike, dude, it's majority competitive players at this point. So, I mean, I think a lot of who they're shooting their product towards is really going to depend on how they tailor that product. But for sure, I mean, the quality of games is definitely lower than it could be. They could definitely be putting their effort in different areas and produce a better product by our standards, by the more veteran and seasoned gamers.
I gotta say, I wouldn't necessarily blame the devs like Joshua is doing. So developers out there, Joshua is blaming you. He's a fucker.
No, not all of them. Just a few.
Now, I think the reality is, well, at least twofold at a minimum. First of all, developers have to feed themselves, so they need to make the money. Mm-hmm. And how are they going to make the money? By getting people to buy their title, right?
Yep.
To do something like you're talking about, notice I'm not going to the other fold, but to do what you're talking about, to make the game that would appeal to the competitive gamer and people who could take it on the tourney circuit and roll some hardcore ass and make a name for themselves, there's a little bit of a gamble at this stage of the game, I think, and maybe we'll slowly evolve into that. But just like with MMOs, how did MMOs start off? They basically appealed to everybody who just wanted to get on, escape daily life, and go do a fucking quest, a la EQ. But then, at the same time, you had people who wanted to escape the daily grind, and they jumped onto UO. But UO, which, let's say that was the competitive gamer route, that was like PvP anywhere, full loot, rape asses, whatnot. But what they have to do, they came up with the Renaissance, where you had the world was, there are two worlds now, a mirror image of each other. One world you can go to where you actively chose to go there, and it was full loot, PvP, destroy asses. The other world was only fighting among guilds and people who were flagged and stuff like that. I believe what happened is most people played in the safe environment, and I think that most people don't want to get online and get their asses just handed to them by people like you. I think they want to feel meaningful. They want to get on. We see this with one of my, I'm going to say it, my favorite, it is actually my favorite MMO of all time, Darkfall. People, I think people can appreciate what the game is. The biggest PvEer, a guy who gets involved, killing mobs, trying to collect gold and shit like that. He doesn't care that much about PvP. I mean, he gets his giggles off it, but that's not his modus for playing. He liked and likes Darkfall. However, he does not like getting on and paying a massive consequences if he overloads with regs or money or something like that. So coming back into the first-person shooter end of it, I just think that for developers to pursue a game title and the mechanics that you're talking about and really nail it down, I think that's a good idea. I think we have to wait for a societal evolution to reach the point where that's actually going to materialize. And we're just not there yet. And like MMOs, we start off being, UO. Well, let's go back to Meridian 59. No, we're not going to go that far back. We go back to UO and the EQ kind of split, and EQ won. And so people saw that they can make money pandering more or less to casual gamers and people that want to basically collect shit and not have it taken away from them. And this really goes back to one of your original question: why don't more people get on and be competitive? Why are they even bothering with the single player game and whatnot? I mean, a dude at work was telling me how he bought one of the latest titles. I don't know if it was the Call of Duty or Battlefield 3. I can't recall. But he was talking about how he was playing the single player mode. And when I read that, I almost had a seizure, dude. I'm like, why would you buy that game to play single player? But I think he just wanted to feel accomplished and not get his ass spanked by Joshua, and that's likely the scenario that unfolds across the board. And as far as titles, going back to why they're not more or less directly evolving into the kind of game and mechanics that you want, once again, and we can look at MMOs for the answer, dude, because that's like the biggest, that's not the biggest, but it's a huge pool. Notice people in MMOs like WoW, they're constantly re-rolling their tunes, and that always surprised me. So you've got a paladin. Let's say you get up to level 50. They'll get to level 30. They're like, oh, well, fuck, I want to roll some warlock. They get that guy up to level 20. Then they go roll a fighter. I'm like, whoa, dude, just focus. Get your guy up there, go PvP, own some asses, but they don't. People have reroll-itis, and I think that's a huge problem, and that's just the way a lot of people are built. I don't even want to say it's a problem. I think that's the way a lot of people are built. So you sound like, especially the way you're presenting yourself, focused. Knowing Apoc, the way he plays, he gets focused. You guys are lasers. You hone in and destroy shit. But I think most people aren't lasers. They're like fucking fish. Oh, look at the fucking glitter in the water. I'll bite that hook, and I'll bite that one. I mean, I play games with a guy where, you know, he's jumping from MMO to MMO. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on here? It's like an earthquake, you know? But that's him. So I think we all just enjoy things in different ways, and you two are focused. And when it comes to a game like Darkfall, as a casual gamer, I'm focused on that.
You know, it's funny you talk about the reroll-itis, because I had a couple of roommates, a young couple, a guy and his wife, and they played World of Warcraft. They had a character of every single class, but no character was like above 50 on the levels. And I wasn't playing WoW, I was playing Darkfall at the time, obviously, but it was exactly what you're talking about. I couldn't believe it. They never even got to see the end game. All they did was reroll over.
And they're happy, dude.
They loved it. They loved it. Every minute of it, dude. They thought it was like the best game ever.
And Josh loved
Pretty surprising.
I guess the last thing that Ryan was talking about there kind of tied into my next point. So, why do people cheese for the win instead of building upon their skill sets to make themselves a more well-rounded gamer? And we kind of touched base on this already before, as I said, but this is kind of where you were leaving off, where you can't, you know, you can't find the determination or focus to just, let's get this guy leveled up all the way. They just stop and, you know, skill set tendinitis, whatever the hell you call it.
Ryan, do you know what cheese is?
Yeah, thanks for...
No, I just want to make sure you know what cheesing is.
No, I don't. What is cheesing, Joshua?
Cheesing is essentially when you don't basically try to play for a normal late game where you actually use all the fundamentals of the game. You don't play the normal way. You basically go for the quick win. It's a risky win. It's a cheap win. It's a risky maneuver. It's basically you take a coin, you flip it in the air. If it lands heads, you win. If it lands tails, you lose. But it's basically like it's a very risky, greedy play where you're just going in to get the 5-minute win, and that's it.
What the term was used?
Then game's over, and then you start a new one. So it's called cheesing because it's cheap and it's better than it's more politically correct than the other terms that it used to be called, and I won't say them.
It's like if you had an I win button or something like that. It's kind of like using a cheat method that doesn't really show skill, but is just you're just trying to get a win and beat someone without actually being better than them.
So basically, what happens though is
it
shortens the length of the game. So you. A 20-minute game or 10-minute game, you're playing a 5-minute game. So it lengthens the game so you can play more, but they're shorter in duration. It's very risky. So if it works, then you get that win. But if it doesn't work, then it's basically an automatic loss. There's no way to recover from it. So basically, you're going in to it, like what is it that's appealing to people to go in every 5 minutes and trying to see if it works or not.
Dude,
like,
I'll tell
it's
you
all
right off.
luck. There's no skill.
No. Well, it's not even about skill, okay? I think that right off the bat, look at people in casinos. Who the fuck takes their life savings and puts it on black?
People do.
You know? So when you play a game, you have to, well, you don't have to do anything, but you can profile your opponents. So are we playing against a gambler? And if we are, we need to set our strategy appropriately. Are we playing against somebody who's methodical, aka or a la Joshua? Okay, now we have to, is he susceptible to the gamble roll, or do we need to actually play methodically in return? You know, so I think it's really a matter of how do people like to play. Once again, go back to the MMO with the reroll-itis. People just have ways that they enjoy engaging games, and that's one of them. So if I can blitz you, honestly, if we get on like Battlefield right now and I can blitz you and win just to fucking like put you under my boot, my pixelated boot, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna stomp your ass, dude, and I'm gonna laugh about it because that's what's fun. I got on, especially as a casual gamer, I've got 15 minutes. I have 15 minutes of remaining for this night to make the rest of my life happy. I mean, that's kind of the way you see it. And I'm getting on, and if I win, I'm logging off. Boom, suck it, bitch. You know, and that's kind of the way it is. You know, you have people that gamble, you have people that have time crunches. and then you have people that's just the way they play. And so you have the privilege, the honor, the enjoyment of kicking their asses 90% of the time, take a 10% loss, that's like a vig to the house. That's just what happens, right?
Okay, but you're a veteran.
You're a veteran.
Okay, but you know what you're doing in the game, right? You've leveled your character or whatever the fuck you do in that game. You have a really good character. You know everything about the game that there is to know. You play the game not frequently anymore, but you have at one point played the game enough to know basically all the fundamentals about the game, and you know how to play the game well. What I'm concerned about is a person playing StarCraft, for instance, who right now I'm at like the second highest division level. There's like, I don't know how many, 6,000 people in each Masters. I don't know if it's basically, there's different grading systems though. So it goes, the very bottom is bronze, then silver, then gold, then platinum, then diamond, then masters, and grandmasters. Grandmasters has like 200 people per server, or 250 or something. Masters is a little bit, it's open, but you still only have like 90% of the gamers are under Masters. Basically, it's diamond and lower. Those are the people that I'm concerned with, who don't have the fundamental. Yeah, they don't have the fundamental skill sets. They can't take the game into a late game. What you're saying is like, okay, so Josh is a methodical gamer. Let's do a long game against him because a blitz won't work against him.
They don't.
What I'm saying is 90% of the gamers don't know how to play out a game into the late game because it's too difficult. Like, it's hard. You need to practice better. You practice your macro management and your micromanagement. So they just basically hop in and cheese, and they don't. If the game goes to a late game, they don't know how to win. They just have it. It's inconceivable to them. They don't know how to do it. They cannot get a win if it's late game.
In StarCraft, the cheese is basically near a 50-50 shot. And generally people that cheese are either doing it for one of two reasons. Either they know that the person they're playing is most likely going to beat them for whatever reason, whether they know the person's a better player than them or it's a race that they're not good against. All right, so it's a matchup that they're not good against. Or the second reason is they're one of the fucking egotistical people that really all they care about is, hey, look at my... I'm in Masters. Really, they should be in, like, Gold or something, a lower tier, right? But they're like, I'm in Masters. And it's because they cheese their way in. They just did cheeses and whatnot. And to kind of understand that, Ryan, it'd be like someone that, to measure, like, to make an analogy of Darkfall. No, make an analogy of Darkfall, something you understand well. It would be like way back in the day when Magic ruled and there was no, splash was full damage. You could hit someone at, like, max range of a nuke and it's still going to do full damage. It would be like someone back then that sucked at fucking Darkfall but went and bought a character, alright, that had a ton of magic and ran around doing nukes and it had no aim, but they would kill someone that was like a melee archer that was way better than them because they were using nukes and that's all they could fucking use. And they sucked ass, but they would still kill people, right?
Right. Yeah, and you know what?
It's pretty annoying, right? And then they join a really good clan and they go around bragging about how badass they are and talking shit and being these little fucking idiot trolls on the net that you just want to smack the shit out of.
Dude, you know what? Okay. Because, I mean, where do I begin? All right, so with that, and that sounds like a good analogy. And the fact is, you're just going to be angry. There's no getting around that. Bitches are bitches. That's the beginning of my latest rap song, okay? There's nothing you can do about it.
Bitches are bitches?
Yeah, people who want to win, they'll do whatever they can. And if the game mechanics lend to them taking what we might perceive as a shortcut, really, what's wrong with that? Using the game for all it's worth to stomp APOC when you know you don't have more skill than APOC, but you can, leverage, this AoEs, fine. I'm going to kill APOC. And he's going to go on my Darkfall kill list, which is sweet. And I'm going to loot his gear and play the air guitar over his head. That's a beautiful thing. And that's really why competitive people play, is to just own some ass. And sometimes people get their 15 minutes of fame. So if I punish you and I can dance on you for those 5 seconds to get my 15 minutes, I'll take it. A lot of people will take it. people like Josh and possibly you, because honestly, I haven't talked too much about what Josh has talked about in this cast, but the fact is, Josh reminds me of a guy who's playing chess, trying to establish a name and a ranking. Okay, and I think it's possible that somebody, a chess master, could overlook a pattern where a noob walks in and crushes him. Stats happen. If you overlook a pattern, it can happen to you. You can get checkmated. But is it going to happen often? No. However, most people aren't like Josh. They're not studying the game. They're not perfecting their skills. They want to get on and just get their game going. And here, most importantly, Josh brought this up. It is a good point that is super pervasive. You brought it up in the context of playing Counter-Strike. Well, this likewise exists in the context of MMOs. I've thought about it. I've actually casted about it at mmosmacktalk.com. However, my tirades, they're all over the place. So, now that we can focus on this, you mentioned micro and macro management. If you're going to be an ace player, I think that's something that you have to work on. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a collection of skills that you need to first cultivate and then improve on those daily. And I think outside of that collection, there is something that a lot of gamers overlook, and that is what you said, the micro macro management. And specifically, now, by the way, I'm taking macro to mean literally how you have your gaming pad or your keyboard wired. Is that what you meant, Josh?
No. When I talk about micro and macro management,
and that's a whole other topic. Go ahead. What do you mean?
When I talk about micro or macro management in an RTS game, it's talking about how you manage. Basically, macro management it's the same as macro management in econ in real life,
Right.
basically. So it's the broader thing. So it's how you manage your base. How many production facilities are you having? How much are you spending? How much is your income? What are you doing with your base layout and stuff like that? How many units are you producing? So micromanagement is how you control your units. It's the smaller, fine things where you move your army in a certain way. That's what I meant with
What's
macro.
funny is I actually broke down your statement for micro in the economic sense, as you just stated,
Yeah.
and macro to be the physical macros you develop. You're right. So I would say that for somebody that wants to even be competitive, they
What are you laughing about, Josh?
You're
What's so
laughing.
funny? Tell us.
I'm about
No,
to
no,
make a good point.
it's fine.
It's gonna
No.
make right?
Go,
And that means
go.
People need to cultivate their gaming skills, knowing their character, and how to win fights. That's like one set of skills. Another set of skills would be kind of those economic efficiency measures that you're talking about, the micro and macro measurements, okay? Another metric that is definitely important, and if you overlook it, I'm going to fly out to wherever you're at and teach you a lesson, is the macro, literally creating macros. And I noticed this in Darkfall, and I've contemplated it in terms of other games, and I think it transcends MMOs. It definitely leaks into FPSs, especially those that have more, skills available, and it's got to seep into real-time strategy games, 100%, especially those with deep trees. And that is, how are your actual macros, your game macros? You press a button, something happens. How are those mapped? How is your brain mapped to the map? Okay.
That's incorporated
that is,
actually into micro, in my opinion, at least.
okay. I understand that, but if we actually talk about it...
So then what's the macro?
So we move from economic sense. Okay, let's talk about it for what it literally is.
Yeah,
It's
a macro key. Yeah, exactly.
right, whether you're using auto hotkey or, whatever comes with your G13 or whatever. Okay, so you have the micro macro economics. You've got your cultivated skills that come as part of knowing and understanding the game, understanding your character. But then you also have your literal physical macros that you have to map. You have to fucking own those. And in Darkfall, I'll tell you what, I played, there was a dude who was part of my guild, and this should make sense to gamers across the fucking span of genres. This guy, I killed him. We had a little duel, and I worked his ass. It was a full-time gamer. I'm ultra cash, and I worked him. I felt good. I logged off right away, take my win and go, okay? And then later, about 3 to 4 weeks later, I ran into him. He left the guild, and he joined up with some other group. met him on the battlefield. Is us three against two of them, and they weren't like super elite players. Okay, they're just, the one guy beat the other guy. He was known to be solid. However, we had three. We figured we take out the weak dude, then we work on the strong guy. I'll tell you what, the weak dude was not the weak dude. After I chatted him, he admitted he'd been working on his game. He dialed in his macros that fit his game style, and he used those to his benefit, something that he didn't do when I had dueled him earlier. So that's a very important part of gameplay, whatever kind of game you're playing. And I think that a lot of people, from casual to guys that play often, I don't want to say at your level, Josh, but that play often, if they overlook macroing and your keyboard mapping in general, if you cannot afford to overlook it. If you want to be a winner, you have to dial that shit in. If you don't want to be a winner, don't even listen to this cast. Go somewhere else, because that's something you've got to do.
Every game I play, you have that. You have in StarCraft 2, people have their hotkey set up to their account. So instead of using the default whatever the game assigns for you, you remap your entire keyboard. So instead of what E getting you a probe, you can make it whatever other key. Something that I actually